there's this whole wave of people getting interested in real estate.
If somebody is really chilling in life without the effort part, then you can be rest assured they would have got the money because they are having rental income.
A piece of advice you'd like to give someone in their 20s who's thinking of buying a home?
You should not really invest. Real estate is essentially a game which one starts playing once they are in 30s.
Very few people know the truth, which is that the richest people in India have a focus on real estate always.
In 1987, father bought a particular plot of land at 87,000 rupees and just today I sold it for 97 lakhs. See, it's a 100x return.
Everyone understands portfolio management service, stock markets, equity markets. Very few people know the truth in your real estate investment game.
Correct. Let's say I'm buying a house worth 100 rupees. I should not be putting the entire 100 rupees from my pocket. I should take loan from the bank. So invest in a project right when the developer starts pouring concrete. So your return suddenly can go up.
In 2024, would you invest in REITs?
Yes, today I would invest in REITs. You can enter into the real estate asset class with a low ticket barrier. I think some of the REITs can be as low as 500 rupees.
Oh, do consumers as well as developers give a lot of Fs nowadays about Vastu?
But let's say I build a south facing flat. Even give it for free, nobody will buy.
It's a sort of rumor that politicians also make the money off of real estate.
That's true. But there's 100 rupees ka corruption which is happening. The politician makes 30 rupees only. The 70 rupees corruption happens at a level.
This whole conversation has been tailor-made to teach you everything that you need to know about real estate. So whether you're an 18-year-old just trying to understand how real estate operates, how you can take part in real estate right when your career starts, or if you're someone in your 40s or 50s and you're considering buying more land, if you're considering a bit of a career switch, or if you're considering taking your real estate investments more seriously, this conversation is an epic A to Z that's going to be relevant for the next 20 years. All the questions, all the answers, all the insights are tailor-made from that perspective. This is one of the ultimate real estate guides, especially when it comes to the Indian context, where in the middle of a part of the Indian timeline, which is all about growing civilization. There's a lot of real estate opportunities out there, but what you need right now as a consumer, as an investor, is the right kind of guideline. On today's podcast, we have Ajitesh Korupolu. He is from a family that's been in real estate for decades now. He's also one of the youngest voices when it comes to the world of Indian real estate. Rarely have I met someone who's able to explain such complex concepts in such a simple manner. You're going to enjoy this conversation, but you're going to have to take notes if you're serious about your own real estate journey. It's a very heavy duty conversation that you'll be able to revisit over the years, and that's what I suggest you do. But for now, enjoy this epic conversation about finance from a real estate perspective. If you want to make wealth in the long term, this is a skill set that you have to obtain as soon as possible. Enjoy today's episode. Ajitesh bhai, I'm too excited about this one. I feel like there's some skills that you learn in school, but no one ever teaches you about personal finance. But now there's this whole wave of people getting interested in real estate. And I think that this is one of those life skills that you're also not taught in school. So today we're going to brush up my real estate skills because I'm a narcissist. And we're also, through my narcissism, going to teach hopefully an entire generation a lot about real estate.
Got it.
And I want today's podcast to be something that will be relevant 30 years from now. So is real estate one of those domains where the skill set is actually relevant 30 years from now, especially in terms of investing or chalking out your real estate career, vagera, vagera?
So Ranveer, let me point out that, let me start this with a small question, right? So the global asset is approximately, if let's say a Martian is coming and want to buy Earth, it's going to cost them $330 trillion, right? Now guess the share of real estate in that. Take a wild guess. That's where tech assets are there, oil and gas. There are a lot of assets in the world, right? What is real estate share out of $330 trillion?
You're saying $330 trillion for all of Earth?
Yeah, if somebody has to buy Earth, $330 trillion is approximately they should shell out.
60%? 60% of that?
So you're close enough. It's 82%. It's $283 trillion of global asset lies in real estate. So we are talking about anybody life's most important product, right? They engage with, right? And for example, Bill Gates is one of the biggest landowner in America, and significant portion of his wealth lies in real estate, right? So real estate is the most important thing. And if you look at any individual's asset portfolio, right, majority of it lies in real estate.
I'd also like to say that because of this personal finance wave on the YouTube part of the internet, everyone understands portfolio management service, stock markets, equity markets. Very few people know the truth that you understand by living in Mumbai or Delhi or Bangalore or Hyderabad or one of the metros, which is that the richest people in India have a focus on real estate always. I have noticed this throughout. I have never met a rich person through my own career who doesn't have very, very heavy duty real estate investments. But often it's something that the average college student doesn't think about right now because real estate seems too far away from their reach.
Correct.
Like even if you're buying something outside of one of the metros, it's going to cost you 10 lakh, 20 lakh, 30 lakhs at least.
Correct.
A hefty sum. Do you have anything to say about this? Like what's the approach a college student or a young professional should take when it comes to this conversation in the first place?
So if I may explain about the entire real estate investing 101. So for a college student to enter into a real estate market as of now, it's not an age where you can enter into because the entry barrier is high. Let's say I want to enter into the equity markets, right? I can just go put some 1,000 rupees, download Zero the app and probably buy a few stocks. But real estate, you can't enter with 1,000 rupees. You have to have, depending on the geography or the location, it might vary from, maybe 10 or 20 lakhs to maybe a crore or sometimes even higher. So that sort of money a college student doesn't have at that age. So real estate is essentially a game which one starts playing once they're in 30s. Once you're reasonably financially, you've got the surpluses, right? That's when you start playing the game, right? But for that, one needs to start gathering knowledge from at least 2 to 3 years prior. It's because, again, it being a very high barrier thing, you can't just jump into it and be wrong, right? Let's say I invest 1,000 rupees in equity and maybe that particular stock went very bad. It still is fine for me because I'm not losing much. But that's not the case with real estate. So it's something which people should start taking it more serious once they're in the 30s, right? And as you probably move closer to 40s and 50s, once maybe you're closer to your retirement, majority of your wealth would be under real estate. You take, for vast population.
Why is that, man?
Because the returns, there is a physical asset in real estate, right? And one I think is attributable even to the psychological layer, right? It's very, very rare to meet somebody who's a working professional, who is part of the urban ecosystem or any ecosystem, right? And who can live like a vagabond, right? There's a lot of marketing which runs around vagabond and that sort of thing. But in reality, it's very difficult that, okay, I have a family, I have kids, and then I don't have a home. It's very difficult to live like that. So people will any which ways consume 1 or 2 housing products in their life, 1 or 2 real estate products, predominantly housing product, right? That's the consumption standpoint, where the value is the fact that, okay, you're investing something, there's an intrinsic value and there's an external, like the important value also is your life unfolds there, right? You need space, you need shelter, you live there. That's one aspect of it. Another aspect of it is investing. Okay, how do I treat real estate as a financial tool? How do I make decent returns? So it's both of these combined. And most often I see people confusing and mixing both of these and then coming up with statements like, boss, I buy a house, rental yield to bas 2.5% milta hai, and bank ka EMI is like 7-8%. This is nuts. Like, it's stupid investment. Essentially, that's a flawed way of looking at it. Let me digress and explain that, right? So when you are looking at real estate from an investment standpoint, you have to leverage. Without leverage, if you're investing in real estate, it's better you put the money in FDs.
Let's pause your... Sorry.
Okay, no problem.
I need to pause you. This last sentence you used, explain that more. What do you mean by leverage within real estate?
Okay. So essentially, let's say I'm buying a real estate product, a house worth 100 rupees, right? I should not be putting the entire 100 rupees from my pocket. By leverage, what I mean is, okay, like out of the 100 rupees, 10 rupees or 20 rupees I should put out of my pocket, and the rest 80 rupees I should take loan from the bank. So leverage is the amount, the amount of money you take from the bank, right? So essentially, I only have 10 rupees, or 20 rupees, but using the bank's 80 rupees, I'm able to buy something worth 100 rupees. In the first case, if I don't take the leverage, matlab loan from the bank, I can only buy something worth 20 rupees because that's all I have. So leverage in real estate means taking the loan from the bank. That's all it is. Right?
So there is a game where you fraction out a portion of your expenditure,
Correct.
take it as a loan,
Correct.
buy that massive piece of land or that
house,
property or whatever. Then you'll be able to get a better rental yield.
Rental yield.
This is what you're saying?
Not rental yield, a return. Right now, let me explain a little more. Let me take numbers in this, right? You bought something which is worth 100 rupees, in which, let's say, approximately 15 rupees, I put mera equity, khud ka equity. And 85 rupees I've loaned from the bank. And let's assume the markets are probably not doing so good. Even in those cases, real estate will grow as much as adjusting to inflation. Currently, inflation in the country is around 6.5%. Let's assume you're growing at the same 6.5%. Matlab in real terms, the growth is zero, but in monetary terms, you're growing at 6.5%, right? Mehngai, essentially, that's mehngai. So 6.5%, let's say any decent developer delivers a project in 4 years. So 4 years, 6.5% compounded, 100 rupees becomes 130 rupees by the time in those 4 years. Now let's assume you're exiting that day. You want to sell out that house, right? Now let's debit the expenditures. So when I'm selling that house for 130 rupees that day, I've taken 85 rupees loan from the bank. I need to pay back that 85 rupees loan. So 130 se 85 aap nikal dijiye. Then you're left with 45 rupees. Let's say in this duration, right, I have to pay the interest component, right, which will also progressively increase over the 3 years. Not that in the first year I end up paying a lot. It's not like that, depending on the construction. So let's assume another 10 rupees you paid towards your interest. So from 130, you subtract the 85, you're left with 45. Usme se you remove that 10 to 15 rupees. Let's chalo 15 rupees aap nikal diye. You're left with 30 rupees, right? How much did you invest? 15 rupees. So 15 became 30 in 4 years span. That is 18% IRR. So when investment in real estate needs to be done, it needs to be done in this format. Matlab, invest in a project right when the developer starts pouring concrete, because that means you would have had almost all your approvals, and your product is set. Matlab, you know what size apartment are there, what size of commercial space is coming. You have details about the product. So hence you invest then, and the minute the particular project gets an occupancy certificate, you exit that time. So by doing this, safely matlab just doing your research well, it's easy to make 18% IRR, 18% return rate. Now, in this logic, 8 out of 10 times this holds true. In this, if you see, I've not taken any crazy returns like 10 or 15%, 20% year on year. I'm just placing it on mehngai. Just because of inflation, this happens. In a good market like what's been happening over the last 2 years, that return is more like 15% year on year. So your returns shoot a lot more. But let's not base it on that, because there's no point in basing something on a one of a kind thing. So whatever formula, it should make you win 8 out of 10 times. That I think is a decent formula.
Okay.
Right.
Few things to be mentioned here. Firstly, I think when people traditionally look at real estate investments, at least on the Indian internet, people only keep this rental yield factor in mind. They never talk about actually selling off the real estate.
Yes, asset growth.
Real estate as an asset that you can buy and sell.
Correct.
Because again, the entry barrier is
high.
Okay. That's one key point of this whole podcast. We're going to talk about it from an investment perspective. So it's not just about rental yield. Secondly, in this whole example that you explained, I want to know about everything that can go wrong, because you used a sentence. You said that if you've done your research well.
Correct.
Let's go deeper into that, because people fear, honestly, that builders will steal the money and go away. At least that's a very Bombay thing.
To be fair, reasonable number of builders have done that also.
Yeah.
So I don't blame them.
So there are some things that can go wrong in your real estate investment game.
Correct.
Talk about it from a very real Indian perspective.
So the research in this, Ranveer, includes that, one, when you're doing this, let's again just look at it from a mathematical standpoint. The more the math and logic, the better it is, right? It's scalable. So when will you lose your return in this? When the 4 years is becoming something like 6 years or 7 years? So when will the time slippage happen? When will a project which was supposed to be delivered in 4 years go to 6 years or 7 years? It happens on few of the conditions where it happens is if the developer is more sort of a new developer, he necessarily might not understand the real estate life cycle, product life cycle, right? Or second thing could have been the developer might, because he's new, he would have got a wrong product market fit. मतलब ये location में 3 bedroom बिकता है, लेकिन मैंने 5 bedroom I did it, right? Then that won't get sold. If that doesn't get sold, then I will have less cash flow to build out the building. So I will take longer time to build it out. And another thing could have been I did not get all the approvals from the government, because anything we do in real estate, we have to take approval from the government, right? Municipality, local municipality essentially. And I have not taken the approvals and I've started selling. So that too is a problem. So these are the main things which one has to watch out for. A more traditional developer who has probably handed over, maybe 5, 10 or whatever number of projects knows these things well, right? He or she knows the product market fit because they have done quite a few projects. They know is micro market mein kya bikega, right? Then they will know, because they will be privy to all the approvals, they would have taken the approvals already, right? And because they have delivered quite a few projects, they will understand the cash flow cycle. How does money behave in this particular sector during the life cycle? Like first year में कितना surplus आएगा, second year में कितना surplus, third year में deficit कितना है, ये पूरा उनको मालूम होगा, right? So that's how it happens. So this is where the research aspect comes in, right? And this 80% of the data is available online, so one need not hire probably an agency to do this. The 10, 15 or 20% which can be outside our control, right? Just like anything, like you invest in equities also, there are certain things outside our control. Such things in real estate is the political environment. Let's say government changed, then they came up with a new policy. Let's say instead of, they thought of building a flyovers or roads in a particular, let's say instead of the east, the west direction. Then east ka real estate will slow down a little bit and the west will pick up faster, because real estate ka prices revolve a lot around transportation, the ease of going from point A to point B, and the social aspect, the neighborhood ka livability aspect. Matlab, kitna utility related infrastructure hai, matlab how many barber shops are there, how many, it can be schools are there, how many playgrounds are there, these sort of things. How many, recreation ke liye entertainment spaces, clubs, movie theaters, this really add value. So government policy has impact on both the social infrastructure and the physical infrastructure. Physical infrastructure though is purely created by the government. Social infrastructure is created by the private sector, but the policies are framed by the government. Let's say, imagine government comes with a policy that, okay, boss, after 10, all bars are closed. Naturally, those people who put bars in that area, their business goes down. So what happens? They'll go and shut shop and go to some other location. That particular bar or that particular, it can be a karaoke club or something which closed. Then people will have less, spaces where they can unwind. So the livability of that space goes down. The neighborhood goes down.
Okay, my mentality is divided into 3 parts. For the longest time, I used to believe in REITs, Real Estate Investment Trust. When instead of buying a whole house, you're buying 1/4 of a house along with 4 of your friends. It's a very bad way, rudimentary way of explaining
but it is.
You're basically buying it like a mutual fund.
Absolutely.
In terms of multiple investors buy that same property and eventually sell it, and all of y'all cash out on the returns.
Correct.
That's the idea behind an REIT. And for all my mid-20s audience members, I think that's where their minds automatically go. Because again, this seems like a very far out conversation for them. They will think about equities, they will think about stock market, portfolio management, वगैरह. So I'd love for you to break down REIT firstly. But I'll also definitely mention, and you can add whatever you want to the next 2 points. I know that it's wise to buy commercial real estate in places that are coming up, in cities that are coming up or around national highways. And if I'm saying something wrong, please give in your input. And the third angle is buying land, which is something I've discovered fairly recently. A lot of my older bros buy a lot of land. Never understood that earlier because I'm like, what, are you going to farm here? But
yeah,
I've understood it now. It's almost more intimate than buying a flat.
Yeah, and sorry to cut you. Just to add to that, you can even manufacture diamonds now. They're lab-grown diamonds. You can't manufacture land. Land is the scarcest of the resource. Diamonds also can be manufactured now. So there is a sense of you rightly said there is that lot of intimate layer because you want to own an asset, right? Something which touches and feels, like you can touch and feel. So that aspect of the touch and feel is still there, but also you're investing in an asset which is more and more becoming scarce. So it has a sort of a upside to it. But I'll explain you, please. Yeah. Sorry.
Can we target these 3 stages of conversation? Because this is how a mid-20s person is looking at it. And we'll talk about that whole roadmap into eventually buying land as well. So do you want to break down REITs a little bit? That's the very approachable conversation for
correct
early life.
Early life investment.
Early professional life. Go on.
Yes. So REIT, what we call real estate investment trusts, the fundamental advantage with an REIT is exactly what you have mentioned. You can enter into the real estate asset class with a low ticket barrier, right? If you're buying an apartment, it might cost you to shell down anywhere from 20 lakhs to a crore or whatever. But in an REIT, you can own a portion of that space, right? On paper, like let's say I buy a 3 BHK apartment and let's say 10 people end up buying through the REIT. It's not demarked that, okay, ye toilet na Ajitesh ko hai. Aisa nahi hota hai, right? But together 10 of us own that space and whatever return the space generates, it's divided. Right. So that's what REIT does. So let's say the house costs 2 crore. Now 10 people are buying it. So matlab everybody put 10 lakhs or maybe 100 people are buying it. Everybody put 2 lakhs and you can buy an REIT.
So there are builders in India who specifically build these REIT investment based models.
Yes. And REIT based investment model predominantly currently in India exist in the commercial real estate. Matlab office buildings which earn rents. Slowly, that is even going to move to logistic business model. So
warehouses.
Builders build warehouse and lease. So any annuity based asset. So an asset which you don't sell, you rather lease and you earn rent, right? In all those models, the REIT is now working and it's giving a decent returns of around 13%, 14%. Right. So that's begun to happen. 12 to 13% ka returns chal raha hai REITs mein.
Roughly for a good investment, how much money do you need?
In REITs, I think some of the REITs can be as low as like, that Rahejak REIT is there, Embassy REIT is there. It's just like buying a stock, like 500 rupees.
Oh.
It's as low as buying a stock.
Okay.
It's very easy on the entry barriers. I need to again cross-check my data, but it's very easy. It's nothing which will cost you lakhs. It's thousands or maybe even hundreds.
If you were 21 again and you were beginning your career in 2024, would you invest in REITs?
No, I would not invest in REITs.
Why?
So essentially, so in your early days of your career, one should not go after, I would say, stable or those sort of assets. Early days mein, because the cost of failure is low, right? So I can take a more riskier asset classes like equities or maybe derivatives or maybe even NFTs. I wouldn't propagate NFTs, but anything like that. But as you age, as you move into 30s, your asset distribution moves to some element of safety because you have responsibilities in life, right? So you want some assets which is rock solid, might give you a little lesser return, but rock solid, returns, stable returns versus the more riskier returns. And if you look at the distribution of investments also, as people age more, a lot of the investments switches to debt and safety mode rather than equities mode. Equity is something which you do in your early ages. So in my 20s, I would want to I don't mind failing, right? So I don't mind getting the extra return. REITs and all. See, that's what I say with real estate. Most of the investment in real estate, the 30s is a good age to start. 20s probably is not the best of the time because there is no additional alpha in that.
Today, would you invest in REITs?
Yes, today I would invest some portion of my money in REITs because let's say I have 100 rupees to invest. Right, some amount of money I would put in equity, so which can go, probably I am not an expert at it, so I'll probably work with some mutual fund guy. Some amount of money I would want a continuous income, right? So annuity based model, like equities is like I put money now, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, I can get or I can lose. Everything has the chances. And with REITs, I'll get the stable income of 6%, 7%. Just like imagine in the olden days when our parents used to invest in stocks, they mainly invested with the perspective of earning the dividend. But our age, nobody talks about dividend. Everybody talks about the stock growth, stock ka value ka growth. Right? Last year it was 100 rupees, now it's 150 rupees. I'm treat real estate the same way. Make money or invest in real estate on the growth of the asset. The annuity, the rent what you get is like the dividend. So dividend investment is more, one one, you need to have a certain proportion of money established for it. Let's say, coming back, my 100 rupees, I would invest like 25 rupees in REITs or annuity based model, because monthly I'll be getting that income, which I can retire early, or maybe I can use it for my lifestyle purposes, or maybe I can reinvest. So that's how I would. And as I move to 40s and 50s and 60s, majority of my money will shift to this, because debt mein kya, like this sort of business mein kya hota hai na, even let's say you invested in a company and the company went bust. You bought its equity and you bought its shares and it went bust. What is it that you get? Nothing. In real estate, you get the asset, a physical asset, right? Which you can always sell it at a later point of time. One of the downside of equities is you never know what actions the management takes. Sometimes it could have been a careless action, or sometimes the market would have flipped suddenly and that business could have been caught off guard and they got disrupted. Anything can happen there. But here, your asset or your piece of land or that REIT, that stays with you. It's physical asset, right? So it stays with you. So as you become older, your risk appetite reduces. Then you switch towards stable assets. That is where real estate comes in. And next thing, let's say somebody has 100 rupees to invest, right? Imagine that at a population scale, the quantum of money. So the quantum of money which can go into equities utna quantum nahi le sakta hai. It has to be real estate, which is, you need let's say you need to carry like 10,000 people. You need a big ship, right? You can't carry them on a boat. So real estate is such a big industry which has demand for that sort of large money as well. So large money always, it moves around real estate.
What's the issue with this equity angle? Like I didn't exactly understand why you said equity doesn't need that much money.
See, equity, like for example, you look at the penetration of the equity markets, right? In India, there are around 4,000 to 5,000 companies alone which are listed. That's all. That's how, in a way, small it is. Right. And in that also, it's approximately, if I'm not wrong, around 1,000 to 1,100 companies which have value more than 1,000 crores. Right. So the amount of money which, you need way more listed companies to take in a lot more money from people. Right. So, and that's happening. Now you see a lot more companies are, getting listed and they are tapping into public funds. But, still, that's what 83%, majority of the money still lies in. Imagine that 83% money moving to equities. Now, are there those many companies? They're not those many. That's what I meant by that.
Gotcha. Coming back to REITs, how do you know as a 30-something Indian about which REIT to invest in? Again, it's just your builder friends. Right? Like how will people know watching this?
Okay, with perspective to REITs, you don't need to really depend on the builder friends. Now there are a lot of mutual funds also which can suggest you on which REITs to buy. A REIT investment is, Ranveer, very close to investing in equity, right? You need not know a lot of information. There are ecosystems like a mutual fund guy. There are some REIT specialized, financial advisors who will tell you which REIT to buy in, what is the return. REIT का भी value कैसा बढ़ता है? Let's say I've built an office space. Now going back to your second question, which was buying office space beside a highway, or essentially what you meant was buying buildings where it's easy to go to. The highway will make sure you can go there faster. That's all it is, right? So naturally, if the amount of time I take to go to office space drops drastically, the rental value goes up. The rental value goes up, so will the value of the REIT and my return. So these sort of analysis will be done by financial advisors. That ecosystem is built around REITs. So the convenience is there, right? So REIT ke liye there are people, right? Then they are there to advise. So investing in REIT is not difficult. Another thing which again, I see sort of experiments happening and tech playing its, role, and new age entrepreneurs coming and solving the problem is the concept of fractional ownership. As you have mentioned in your earlier, let's say there's one house and 4 people are buying. Now there are tech platforms through which you can do this. So that brings in a great sense of, convenience. Of course, it needs to be waited and seen, because again, that industry is also in its nascent stages. It's just begun doing, recently, I would say predominantly over the last couple of years is when this sort of, disruption has begun. And we'll have to wait and see how this plays out. In fact, in mature markets like Europe and America, there you can buy like timestamps, like, let's say, I don't know, on Manhattan overlooking the Central Park, you want to buy an apartment. It might cost a lot of money. So you can buy a particular, like a 5% share of time in it. Let's say in 365 days, you can buy like 30 days.
What?
You can timestamps, they call that. So you can buy your amount of time you spend there, something like that. You can do that. So I see this sort of business model and the fractional ownership merging and coming up with better solutions. So that is bound to happen. And then I've even come across one interesting use case, but I don't think it fared well after that, apart from the early days, is that how you do this using blockchain also. So that adds to one level of financial, I would say, securitization. But again, it needs to be weighted and seen really what blockchain as a technology piece can do in real estate. And there are, even if I'm not wrong, India may also a couple of startups who are trying to do this entire land ownership on the blockchain ecosystem so that nobody can tamper with the ownership. Let's say Ranveer owns a land and there is some paperwork on that. Some government ka website, somewhere I go and I tamper, I remove your name and put my name. Essentially, it becomes my property. It's not that easy. It's very complicated. But let's say some crazy hacker from Russia had done that. Using the blockchain, I believe that there's less chances for it. So that was a value prop of these guys, but I've not heard much about such things in the last 6 months to a year. We'll have to wait and see. Again, this is one place where tech has got now an enormous role and they're just scratching the surface.
Okay, the one thing I've noticed by living in Warsaw, in the middle of the media industry in Bombay, is that a lot of my female friends have this aspiration to buy a home, and the male friends are still not totally convinced about buying a home, but they're very keen on like commercial real estate. That's where the two mindsets go. Now, in the last 2-3 years since I moved here, I've noticed that some of those girls who've actually gone ahead and bought a home with a home loan are actually kind of, I won't say struggling, but they're finding it difficult to constantly keep up with the EMI requirements and all that. What's an example, or what's a piece of advice you'd like to give someone in their 20s who's thinking of buying a home in the first place, in a metro or in a tier 2 city also? Do you have any advice? Because personally, my advice is, if it affects your mental health, it's too expensive, bro.
It is.
That's the basic advice I definitely want to give people. As romantic as real estate investments are, I personally feel you should do that once you have a little bit of money in life.
Yes. I totally agree to that viewpoint, Ranveer. So essentially, real estate is something which you should be owning once you're reasonably comfortable. You should not really, let's say you should not, invest in something which will really push you into financial distress or something like that, because monthly loan commitment is a commitment, right? So it will have impacts. So people should carefully plan that move, right? And probably take a good at least a 1 to 2 year window in understanding the leads. Because another thing which I see also, I don't know in Bombay, but predominantly in Hyderabad, is that there is this lot of frenzy, and generally Telugu people love owning physical assets. That's their thing, right? So they're in a frenzy to go buy assets, sometimes way beyond what they should be owning or comfortable with. In that FOMO, pura FOMO aa jayega, and then you unnecessarily start creating stress in your financial ecosystem. So it needs to be well thought through what my needs are, what I can afford, how much loan is safe for me. And then they need to do it. And the reason women do this more, because see, in family life, irrespective, these days even the woman is working, but still she's the person who's majorly dealing with the entire household affairs, right? It's her subject area, her domain area. So the woman is thinking about setting up a family, right? Even though she's working. So that's they always do this. That's why she's thinking from the perspective of home ownership. Men majorly think around financial, how do I build up the surplus and the entire financial aspect of family living. So hence men think about the annuity, matlab kitna return hai. If I buy a commercial asset, I start getting 50,000 to 1 lakh rent, and over maybe that will push my retirement. I can retire 5 years earlier because the income is going to come. So men think in that line. So that's why you see the divergence there.
Okay.
So it's a different thought space.
One for the boys.
Yeah.
Commercial real estate. I think it's very widespread knowledge now that commercial real estate will generate returns if done intelligently. That's the narrative on the internet, at least.
Just to add to that, it will generate good monthly returns, annuity. But commercial real estate may growth. Like let's say I buy a space which is worth 100 rupees today. In 3 years, the chances of that space ka value increasing from 100 rupees to, let's say, 130 or 150 rupees is not there.
That's there with the residential.
That's there with the residential. Because residential ka kya hota hai, let's say, apartments are coming up in that area, and then suddenly the social ecosystem also develops, then the livability aspect goes up. Let's say a good school has come up in that, right? Matlab more school going kids ka parents would want to move into that area. Matlab the demand has gone up. So hence the growth aspect in terms of asset value growth comes more in residential. Commercial you don't get because it's stable. See, commercial ka return is in terms of value, like asset growth purely comes as a rental yield. Let's say, because another thing with residential real estate is the aspect of you can live in it. That's a value, right? You can live in it. It provides shelter. That's a very tangible value. Commercial real estate mein who lives? Let's say the tenant has vacated. There's no aspect of living in it. So hence commercial real estate's value only changes if the rental value suddenly changes. And rental value don't change overnight. They're very stable that way. And they don't fall also overnight. Whereas residential real estate, because of third place infrastructure like schools, breweries, or any recreational spaces suddenly can go up. So it's
there's pros and cons on both
pros
sides.
And cons on both sides, yes.
So for the rental yield investment game, commercial real estate is a good idea.
Absolutely.
And for this asset oriented game of real estate, residential
growth oriented. Yes.
Growth oriented.
Yes.
So if you want to say, okay, एक दिन अक्खा मुंबई अपन का होगा,
then it's resi.
Go after the residential areas.
Yes.
Damn, intelligently.
Yes, intelligently. Yes.
One for the girls. So anyway, my point is you need to have clarity on what you're doing, right?
Yes.
Let's come back to this commercial real estate angle.
Mm-hmm.
Could you expand on the mathematics of this rental yield through commercial real estate a little bit more? Mm-hmm. If I buy an office space for 100 rupees, of course, I'm sure the story is different for Mumbai versus Gurgaon versus Hyderabad. Let's talk about minus Mumbai. I think the Mumbai market is too saturated and expensive, honestly. That's my reading. Please correct me if you disagree.
It's that analogy is correct on the residential side, not on the commercial side. Commercial side, Mumbai, Hyderabad, Bangalore, Delhi, anywhere it's the same.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's not much difference. I'll tell you why also. Because commercial real estate ka value purely depends on the rental yield. So if there's a 80 rupees ka rent, the value is determined on that. And unlike in residential real estate, where if you look, return on rental yield is 2.5%. In commercial real estate, it's almost 7 to 8%. And in commercial agreements, whenever you're leasing a space, you see that there's always 4 to 5% increment in rent every year, right? So that you add this 7 to 8% rental rate plus that 4 to 5% of increment in rent, that comes up to 12 to 13%.
So roughly over 10 to 15 years, it becomes profitable?
A commercial, let's say, okay, I'll give an, let's say if I'm investing in commercial real estate, how I would do. I'll first take my 100 rupees, buy a leased space wherein the return rate is anywhere around 6 to 8%. 8 is very desirable, but sometimes if the tenant is very good, you end up getting 6.5%. Let's say Google has, you're buying a fraction of the space where Google has leased. So you stability of rents, right? So 6.5 to 7%, let's say I got it. And then what I would do is, this is a physical asset, right? I can definitely, in case I want to increase my IRR. So what do? I will pledge this out. And the bank will give it, because it's leased to a good tenant, the bank will give me 70-75% of the value back. So my investment in that would only be 25-30%. The rest 70% I would take back my equity and go do with other investments. And the rent and this will probably, with a variance of 2 to 3 percentage points, it will match. Over a span of time, that rent would be paid off. From the rent will pay off the interest and I'll have the asset to myself. So yes, it will become profitable for you after 6 to 7 years. Then the interest part, the loan is paid off, and then that becomes like a monthly income.
Who usually buys commercial real estate in India? Rich people?
Yes.
That's effectively who?
Yes. It's where, there's more financial surplus. Yes.
Okay.
Now, using the REITs, a lot of younger age people are also able to participate, because instead of like buying with 2 crore, 3 crore, I'll go and buy a REIT which is like 500 rupees and I'll get uska worth ka, whatever that's 7 to 8% of that, I'll get as a monthly payout or yearly payout, quarterly, whatever is the conditions.
So if you have 2-3 crores worth of money, a good idea is to go for this commercial real estate.
Yes. And you want to invest, you want to enjoy a monthly income from the 2-3 crores. Yes, commercial real estate is very good. You want to play an aggressive game where the 2-3 crores go in, like let's say 5 years, you want to make it 5 crores. Then I would pick the residential game. So it depends on which aspect you want to pick. Real estate as income or real estate as value growth.
What I'm visualizing is these old rich uncles who worked hard throughout their life and now have kids who don't work hard. They'll buy commercial real estate and give it to those kids.
Yes.
Is this what happens?
In fact, yes, it happens. And I keep telling my dad that, he has given me few rental properties. I told him I'm not going to give any rental properties for my kids because giving rental properties to your kids is like signing up, for them to probably go and, spend recklessly in a way, because you don't need to do anything. You just get the money. But yeah, that happens.
All my rich friends who are chilling in life are chilling based on rental income.
Yes. If somebody is really chilling in life and, and having a blast, then without the effort part, then you can be rest assured they would have got the money because they sold some land which suddenly value became crazy, which happens a lot in Hyderabad and in Delhi. Delhi it's much more rampant than in Hyderabad. Or they're having rental income because you don't need to do anything. Let's say I'm doing a job, hence I'm getting the money. I'm getting a rent, boss, I don't need to do anything. Right? And because somebody has leased the space, I'm going to get that rent, right? So if somebody is really having a blast, it's either of these two. Or maybe these days they could have got some crazy exit from a VC also. That's also totally possible. But the traditional set is this. Yes.
How long will this scenario last in our country? 50 years at least? There's not going to be some disruption for like a while, I feel.
I agree to it because again, see, real estate is not a field which can be disrupted overnight. Unlike technology is like, you see that ChatGPT has come and Google is really feeling the heat. Like a conglomerate like Google, which is top 3 companies in the world or whatever, is really feeling the heat. Real estate to do something like that is not possible because it's a very, very massive structure, multiple layers. It's very complex that way. It cannot be disrupted overnight. Multiple stakeholders, various levels of regulation and all, it cannot happen. But progressively things will probably get disrupted. So yes, I would say in our country, there's at least another 20 years where this will play out. After that, I don't think 50 years, 20 years, yes.
20 years at least.
Yes.
Like this podcast.
Our generation, probably my generation.
This podcast will be relevant for the next 20 years.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
If you had to have a hypothesis about what will happen post that.
Interesting. See, post that, I don't see it. That's what, again, because real estate is somewhat linked with high entrance capital. Or no, it would be like, post, I see the model of the future would be something like the mutual fund sort of thing will come up in real estate where people can buy a home, not a full home, but you can even buy a home with 1 lakh rupees because you're buying it with 100 other people. And then that particular real estate mutual fund, let's call it, real estate mutual fund is taking that money and buying those homes and then selling it out at higher prices. That's definitely going to come, especially another problem with real estate has been there's a lot of cash. Once there's a lot of cash, this sort of disruption also is very difficult, right? But now it's significantly becoming a lot of white money. So such services, such agglomeration of money is going to happen, and then you will see reasonably big fund houses which will go buy lots of real estate and then probably trade it at a higher price or lease it and then give return to investments. That's going to happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everyone knows about this Gurgaon and Noida situation where a lot of people sold their land and made heaps of money,
correct,
etc., etc. You're saying that this happened in Hyderabad as well?
Yes.
Still happening in Hyderabad?
Relatively compared to NCR, it's a lot less, but this happens. And this is not just a Hyderabad phenomenon, Ranveer. It's a phenomenon across all cities. See, or to put in a very blunt perspective, wherever you get a lot of money with very minimal effort, this is bound to happen. So I bought a piece of land, right? Not much effort is involving around that. Let's say I bought some land and I'm farming. Right? There's a lot of effort involved. So whatever money I earn out of it, I'm going to be careful. I bought a land and I did nothing. Government laid the road beside it and suddenly, boom, big buildings are coming beside it. So naturally, I'm going to be a little more easy with that money, right? So this is a phenomenon across India. predominantly in NCR, it's shown a lot more, right? You will see this increase in wealth being displayed as well. Probably in some other areas, I don't know, Bombay and all, whether it's displayed or not, but yeah.
तू जानता नहीं मेरा बाप कौन है.
Yes, that's, if somebody is doing that, you can, with a 70% probability, you can say he or she is from real estate or infra. Again, industries where there's a lot of interlinkages with the government and government policy.
Infra,
Like matlab road building guys or flyover building guys.
gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. The reason I'm asking you about this NCR and Hyderabad situation is because I think history will repeat itself considering where we are as a country today.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
The people who are currently farmers are probably going to give their kids luxurious futures.
Yes.
But if you are proactive now as a real estate investor, you'll be able to buy some of this farmland right now for cheaper rates than what they'll eventually be.
I'll share one story just to digress a little bit. So I was having a conversation with my father-in-law, and he was telling me that in 1987, his father bought a particular plot of land in the district where he came from, and he gifted it to him. And he was telling me, see, my father bought it at 87,000 rupees, and just today I sold it for 97 lakhs. From 87,000 to 97 lakhs or 1 crore, something it was. And he was like, see, it's a 100x return. Where do you get 100x return? I said, okay, let's calculate the math behind it, right? So some 40 years and 100x return, you plot it, essentially it's 16.7% compounded annually. So that's a very good return. 16% you're compounding for 40 years straight. It's very difficult. Stock markets and all, it's a very impossible thing to do. So yes, things can happen that way. And see, one also has to remember, Ranveer, is that land is a very scarce asset, right? You can't manufacture land, right? Maybe some cities you can like really reclaim land from the sea, but that's not something which happens on probably at everyday stuff. So investing wisely on it, yes, there will be good returns which one can expect. Yeah, you should buy some land and give it off to your kids.
Already in the process.
Okay,
I expect that I'll have 3 kids in life. Because of this whole thing that hard times build hard men build soft times, soft times build soft men, soft men build hard times.
Yeah, that cycle. Yes.
You can break the cycle through commercial real estate.
Yes. Possible, yes.
But seriously though, I mean, like, I am buying land and investing in commercial real estate with this intention that one, if my career fails, while I'm in my prime as a YouTuber, might as well redirect that money intelligently.
Some part of it, right? It's not everything.
Yeah.
So people need to have a portfolio of assets. See, that's what I keep saying. Like, there's nothing like, okay, I'll put this probably equities is super and real estate is shady. It's nothing like that. One has to have a diverse asset. And one has to, deal with the necessary knowledge, and then the ecosystem has to be built around it.
Yeah. Even with film families, I'm sure in the Telugu industry also it's something similar.
Lot of land is held by them. Yeah.
Like, especially in the Hindi film industry, I know for a fact that, relevance is not easy to maintain in terms of fame over...
Correct.
Like
especially in the media
years.
industry and this glam industry.
All the families that have maintained their lifestyle have actually invested in land or commercial real estate or residential real estate when their time was very good.
Yes.
That's how they're still able to wear designer clothes, able to have entourages around them, etc.
Absolutely, you're right.
Very important life lesson that you probably learn in Mumbai and Hyderabad, I guess.
Yes. And maybe NCR as well.
Yeah. NCR are supposed to have that highest per capita income. Where's all that money, extra money going?
From land and this sort of things.
It's a very capitalistic thought, but this narrative about in our country, the rich is getting richer and the poor is getting poorer. I don't think it's a narrative. I think it's data driven. In 20 years, if people spend the next 20 years educating themselves, spread information, I think our country will see better per capita income going forward, and real estate will be a part of this.
Yes, I would like to add one thing to this. You raised a very important point on the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer. Right. And there has been an enormous innovation which has happened in this, and we'll see the reflection of that in the next 20-30 years, is UPI. I'll share how it's going to create a sort of a impact. Right. So essentially, construction sector is India's second biggest employer. I think we are the first or second biggest employer. First is agri sector. Next is the construction sector. Now, the problem is that majority of the laborers, right, contractor gets paid from the developer and the laborers take cash from the contractor. And because they're taking cash, their income stream is not established, right? Let's say, I'll give you one interesting statistic. In India, if you are earning more than 25,000 rupees a month, you're in the top 10 percentile. So if you're earning 3 lakh rupees a year or 25,000 rupees a month, you're in the top 10 percentile of the country. Almost 70% of the laborers working in most construction sites in the cities earn around 30 to 35,000. If you're an electrician, you're earning around 45,000. It's a very decent, very reasonably good income. But a lot of this is in cash. Because it's in cash, I consume it. Let's say if this is in white money, right? Then what happens? Every month I'm earning 25,000 or 30,000 rupees. I can go take 5 lakh, 6 lakh loan from the bank. In my village or district, I can go buy a plot of land. The day I retire, I can live off the plot. I can sell that plot or maybe build a shop and rent it out. This has to happen. If this happens, then the last mile person in this sector will see great amount of asset creation, and hence, yes, the poor will also start becoming richer. The poor are getting poorer not because opportunity is being, the general narrative is opportunities that are being taken away from them. No, the poor are getting poorer because they are unable to get onto the train which will make you rich, which is, free movement of money becoming white rather than being in cash, all of these things. It's not because opportunities are being taken away predominantly. It's because, you are not getting onto the train, and probably they wouldn't understand. They wouldn't know, right? And in fact, the government has done a very good thing now. So until 7 lakh of yearly earning, you don't have to pay any tax also. But yes, these things have to be taught to them, and we are looking at certain methodologies where we can enforce our contractor also to give white money to to his laborers. So there is good amount of facial recognition technology what we are using for this and all. Maybe I can talk about it later, but yes.
What's the solution here for that laborer about this? You said that village example, that go buy land in the village. What's the solution in terms of, you're talking about jumping on the train? How do you plan the jump?
Okay. See, it's like this. Today, what happens, the typical work cycle of a construction laborer is, I'm going to come to the particular project. I'm going to work for like 3-4 months. And ye 3-4 months ka kamai might be 1 lakh rupees or 1,20,000, whatever it is. I'm going to take the cash, go home and give it to my wife and family, and then she takes care of the house, right? If this money is, instead of being taken in cash format, it moves to white format. Matlab that 30,000 is the contractor gives to my bank account. I can simply UPI that money. Now that's where I say UPI is a tremendous revolution in the country. This is one of its major thing. Because of the convenience what it has given, now these laborers are also demanding the contractor that, boss, you give me in white. Because, and again, there is an element that, physical cash there's more trust, right? Digital money, less trust. At least at their scale, they wouldn't probably perceive it. But now that has gone. Because UPI ke saath aap vegetables kharidte, you can do anything, right? So hence they now know it's legit. So now they're taking that money, and the convenience of sending that money to home is coming up. And when you do this repeated transactions, your income stream is established, right? And then you can borrow loan. That's bound to happen. That will happen in the next sometime. And, we are exploring at ways to educate them in financial matters so that you can create assets. And see, the only way you get rich is by creating assets. You don't create. And that's where I feel a little sad for the laborer also, because a construction laborer, work entails a lot of physical stresses and strain on the body, because you're lifting stuff, right? And the climate can be harsh sometimes. Like Hyderabad is known for like 40 degree plus. So on top of slab, it will be 10 degree plus because the steel will be there. It will conduct more heat. Imagine you're working in such conditions, and it will have toll on your physical body. And the day you stop working, you'll not earn any money and you have not created asset in this while. So, we should educate, because see, I think one thing as a sector where we have failed to some extent is really, taking the entire ship along, right? Majority part of the stakeholder in the sector is the laborer, and he has not become as well off, and that needs to begin to happen. And UPI has been a very welcome step in that, and it will mature out even more, and then all of this thing can happen.
What about wrong strategy when it comes to real estate professionals in terms of builders who go bust and all that? What goes wrong there? Or builders who are killed Like, what goes wrong there?
This killing is somewhat of a phenomenon I see in sometime. I read few articles which happen in Bombay and to some extent in NCR. Never in Hyderabad or probably Bangalore. Right, but yes, the logic what happens there could have been that because land is such an important asset, there could have been some underworld linkage, or maybe some local goon or some local big man, or maybe the developer himself also could have been snatching away assets, something like that. It happens.
One second, this whole conversation we're having, the overarching angle here is that land is not a very openly available asset. The underworld knows this. So
Yes.
obviously their eyes are on land as well.
Absolutely.
Even in 2024 in India, this is a reality.
I would say considerably less. Like, for example, in 1990s or early 2000s, the underworld had a good control over land and such fundamental assets. Now I see that falling down rampantly, probably negligible in cities like Bangalore, Hyderabad, particularly the negligible. I see some, and probably Bombay also very less it could be, but I don't know much about Bombay. But yeah, Bombay, I don't think so because, yeah. So essentially, the grip of underworld on such assets is significantly coming down because of improvement in law and order. And second, even the information pertaining to land records. Matlab, what's happening is, let's say there is a piece of land and the ownership is well established that Ranveer owns it. Right now, some underworld guy to come and blatantly take it away. Today, the law and order is very good, so the police can go after it and they can, probably settle off those things or probably punish whoever is doing the malpractices. But we see this a lot in Uttar Pradesh. And if you actually see, of lately, I've been seeing articles that the government has reclaimed a lot of land from these, goons and thugs and all these gundas. Right. So essentially, a lot of government lands are taken over by these gundas, and there'll be some sort of political nexus. With that support, they take it over and they try to trade it. Now things are changing there. Government land, government is claiming, and probably using it for government purposes, whatever it could be. So yes, land is getting cleaned up. And one needs to, probably, I think another big, innovation what's happening, Ranveer, again, something which is not at all spoken, is digitization of land records. Like, for example, in our state of Telangana, the digitization has begun. And I think 2 or 3 other states also, the digitization of land records has begun. So the entire ownership of land is now established online, right? By ownership, it's not just the current ownership, the past 50-year ownership. In the last 50 years, who are all the people who owned this land and at what points of time they transacted and at what value of money they transact. That entire information is now being digitized. And I see by this end of decade, that's one of the major direction in which the government is also moving as part of the smart city agenda and all of this. Right? So that will clean it up to probably 95%, 97%.
What will be left?
I don't know. There can be some sort of impact where that particular land there are 2-3 policies. Sometimes what happens, state boundaries are not that well defined. So there can be an issue that this state is claiming that land and another state is also claiming that land, and different states have different land laws. So those sort of fissure points would be there.
How do you know if a developer is shady or not?
See, first and foremost, I must say, with the change in regulation in the sector, especially I think 2017, 2018, the RERA has been implemented. So RERA is called Real Estate Regulatory Act, right? So essentially that regulates the sector, right? One of the key proponents in that thing is you cannot do any advertisements of your product, which can be housing product or a commercial space or a land, without taking approval from the government. One very, very, because a shady builder, first of the thing he does is, without taking approval from the government, is going to sell you these assets. And let's say the government doesn't give approval for it, you have already given the money, you're in the soup.
That is the key factor.
One prime aspect. So you need to have a RERA number, RERA approval. Only invest in properties which have RERA approval. That's one point. So builders who are selling you without the RERA approval can be considered reasonable to significantly shady. It's all probability again, right?
And this is a reality in 2024 also. There are many like that.
But quickly decreasing. quickly decreasing. Like for example, 5 years back, let's say they were out of 100, let's say 30 were like that, or maybe 40 were like that. Today that number is coming down to 20 or 18. And I see by 2030 that number will come off to sub 5.
What happened to the 20 that left?
A good chunk of these people, what happened is their businesses went bankrupt, right? Because consumers have realized this and they have stopped investing with them. So the businesses have gone bankrupt or they ran away from the country, right? Anything can happen. You see a lot of, sometimes it happens that people run away from the country after doing your financial misdeeds. So they would have ran away from the country, or the business would have winded up, or maybe, some of them would have landed, a good chunk of them, even big developers have landed in the jail. Over the last 1-2 years, if you see a lot of news articles, especially from NCR, they've even landed in the jail. So yeah, government is, regulating it well and punishing those probably developers who really play around with somebody's financial security. So that's happening.
I know so many uncles in Bombay whose money is stuck in real estate. What does that phrase mean? Because it is related to the shady developer angle that we're speaking about.
Yes. So what stuck in real estate, they have purchased the property and the developer is unable to build it further and deliver it to them. So essentially your property is stuck in under construction phase. It could be because Bombay mein, I think the regulatory framework is a little more complicated. At various stages of the project, you have to go and take various approvals, which will even mean change in amount of square feet you can build. Like for example, I might start, this is pertaining mainly to Bombay and certain cities, not there in Hyderabad at all. In Bombay, what happens is, when I start the project, I go and take approval that I'm going to build 1,000 square feet of built up space on this land. After building a certain level, I go and take approval for another 1,000 square feet. So when I'm buying land, I'm buying with the valuation that I can build 2,000 square feet. Let's say when I go and take approval the second time, a policy changed and I can't build another 1,000 square feet, but 500 square feet. Overnight, my pura balance sheet or my projections got screwed. So that is there. So I would say part reason is also because the extreme complex nature of regulation, which also should be significantly eased out. And I think, under the smart city mission, probably these sort of things, the government needs to look at it. And I think these things are being taken into cognizance. The rules should be easy. It cannot be like rocket science. It cannot be that you will get you will get approval for 2,000 square feet. I get approval for 1,500 square feet. It needs to be, so you make anything too complex, then there is good scope for corruption. If you make things simple, then naturally there'll be less chances for that.
Okay, so the way to spot a shady developer is, one, they need a RERA registered number for that particular property.
Absolutely.
And their own RERA number, is that also?
Yeah, RERA gives a number to every project.
Okay.
So every project will have a unique ID sort of thing, you can think. RERA ID, they need to have that.
What else? How do you spot a shady developer?
Next thing is track record. So is this the first time he or she is building? If this is the first time he or she is building, because real estate project lifecycle is quite complex, right? It involves various stakeholders, quite a lot of engineering technical challenges. So they might not necessarily understand all of this. See, another problem with the sector is everybody thinks they know everything in the sector. But in reality, that's not the case. It's a very complex piece of engineering which happens. And at least if people think I don't know it and approach it, you'll have an attitude to learn it. But you're approaching it with I know everything. And it's very complex. So they tend to screw it up. So because they probably might not have the necessary engineering intellect on the product side of things, right? From the aspect of design to the aspect of delivery, building it out. So that also leads to significant construction delays. So try not to take, I would say, a very adventurous risk with somebody who's doing for the first time. Again, this does not mean that he or she or that particular developer is not capable. But I would say wait it out. Let them show, a couple of projects, delivery, and then you can take a bet, right? That's one thing. Next thing could have been that this is very difficult. I don't think people can directly know, is that the cash flow management, which again RERA mandates that any proceeds you take from a customer, 70% of that I need to invest in the project. 30% I can use it because 25 to 30% profits hota hai. So you can use that to pay that. You can use that to buy other land or probably outside company expenditure, or invest in assets or something. But 70% has to be invested in that project. This did bring about a great degree of financial discipline, right? But for an individual, they wouldn't know this because this information is not available. But RERA as a law mandates it. And Maharashtra RERA is quite active, and they are the forefront in terms of this regulation policy implementation in the country. A lot of the states and cities look at the MahaRERA and build up use cases around that. So it's very good here. So these 3 things they need to look out for. So try not to, again, I'm not putting a very hard stop that don't invest with a first time developer, because there are again good number of, even I myself was a first time developer like 5 years back, right? And so people did take their risk with me. So look at those aspects and try to get a understanding, maybe meet the particular developer to see their product understanding and stuff like that. That should help. So these 3 aspects, but don't get it wrong, because if you get it wrong, 10 years of your financial life is gone. And that's little painful. That's very painful, not little painful, very, because you see, you get wrong in equities. It's not that you're going to lose a decade of your financial life, but you get your real estate bet wrong, a decade is gone. So real estate chances of failure should be kept very low.
Who's the real estate icon in India? Like in your project, Niranjan?
Niranjan sir is one, a great inspiration for young entrepreneurs like us, right? I particularly even follow total environment projects. They're very design oriented, right? Because again, see, one aspect of real estate also, Ranveer, I'm beginning to feel like it's not just about selling square feet. You're selling life there, right? You need to really take into cognizant how your customer's life happens there. You need to get into the skin of the product, right? How will the lady of the house use the master bedroom or the master toilet? Where is she going to keep her makeup equipment? You need to think in that layer. Where is it that they will do their morning yoga if it's within the flat? Where is that the kid will play? What will happen? How will the life in the living room unfold? There's a lot of that sense of emotion also attached to it. So yeah, I think that's what is probably, that's what converts square feet into a home. You're selling a home, you're not selling square feet, or the days of selling square feet are dying.
See, I don't know now where this next question is coming from. But I have noticed that a lot of consumers as well as developers have suddenly started focusing a lot on Vastu of locations. Have you noticed this as well? Is this a trend? Is this a very Indian thing?
Yes, and probably the hotbed of Vastu is Hyderabad. So that's the capital of all Vastu, right? Pan India. Yes, see, Vastu, Ranveer, is 90% of it is actual science. So what does Vastu talk about? Essentially lighting in your house and ventilation, right? So air circulation needs to be very good. That is what Vastu, and lighting also. Like, let me tell a small example, like one use case.
Sure.
Right? In the olden days, women used to do a lot of cooking. Like the kitchen used to be the workspace of the women of the house, right? And when you're working in the kitchen, naturally, if there is more light there, vitamin D and all, better health practices. So that's why the kitchen had to be in the area where there's more natural sunlight. That's one of the origination of Vastu, right? Same thing with air circulation. So if the air circulation in a house is bad, right, then the air inside naturally will have more carbon dioxide and more germs and all. Now on top of this, there have been several layers. That is where a lot of superstition also came in. Like maybe people say, okay, there is a particular slab projection, then the owner of the earning member, the earning member of the house, the owner of the house will have a short life. This is superstition. So it does, there is, I would say good percentage of them which is genuine science, and there is some percentage of it which is more superstitious, and from geography to geography, city to city, it changes.
Do developers give a lot of Fs nowadays about Vastu?
Yes, they have to if you have to do business. Fs, no.
In terms of, do they care about it, right?
They absolutely care about Vastu. Like without Vastu, something in Hyderabad, let's say I build a south-facing flat. Like I can even give it for free, nobody will buy. Nobody will buy. I'll literally be building my own burial ground if I do that. So Vastu is something very essential. Without that, I think it'll go for boom.
Okay. I think we're almost near the end of the episode. We haven't really spoken about real estate tech. And it's already a very deep and thick episode. So maybe don't expand too much in detail about real estate tech. Or maybe expand. It's fine. What's up? How does real estate even have tech in the first place?
Okay. So let me start with a very basic analogy, something which most users can understand, right? Technology in this field plays a role of efficiency improvement. So I use more technology, my efficiency goes up, right? Let's take an example of manufacturing, where a lot of technology, automation, robotics has been used, and that has led to, a lot of cost reduction and, company scaling a lot. Why? What happens in manufacturing? See, manufacturing simply the human is fixed at the station and the assembly line moves. Let's say I'm a car laborer, right? Working in the car automobile sector. If I am fixing a car door, I fix the door, then you see the car automatically moves to the next station where they fix the cars. This way, the manufacturing sector has seen great productivity, enhancement in productivity. In real estate or construction, it's exactly the opposite. The assembly line is fixed and the humans move. Matlab, the column where I'm working, I make this column, then I move to the next column. The next column doesn't come to me. Because of this, there is huge inefficiencies in where people should be going. Like there are 10,000 columns in a project. Which column should I be going? Right? That's gross, efficiency can be built on that line. So telling people where to go, right, is very, very important. Imagine, let's say there was no Google, the way I came to your office, right? From my hotel, I just simply put your address and I landed here. Imagine, and that took me like half an hour to 45 minutes. Let's say the Google map wasn't there. What do? First thing I have to call you 10 times, Ranveer, the left lane hai, right lane hai, and ask 10 people on the street. And I have to provision, instead of the 45 minutes, I have to provision 1.5 hours to reach here, right? The same thing happens in real estate. Because laborers, and there are different cohorts of laborers. Like there's a group of laborers who will be doing concreting. There's a group of laborers who will be doing like plumbing and different works. On a real-time basis, we need to keep telling them which location to go. This is how work on site happens. So the project manager tells them, okay, boss, you 10 people go to flat number 604 and do your work. You do like 805 or something like that, right? There is gross 70% inefficiency in this process because let's say the project manager is not present when the laborers are there. Then boom, their time goes in waiting. Right? Or let's say the project manager is just absent that day. He's taken a leave. Then again, that goes in waiting. So in our company, we created a digital twin, right? Using this real-time data, and the digital twin compiles all of the information and it tells the laborers where to go. There's no human intervention whatsoever. Simply the system will tell where to go. And again, next aspect is the empathy aspect, where I cannot give some complex piece of technology to my labor. Again, who is again a subject matter expertise in his domain, right? Not particularly in using a particular piece of technology, right? So we had to make it very easy for them. We cannot make it some rocket science. So this is where we took inspiration from the traffic signal. Everybody in our country understands the traffic signal. So where we took the same colors, in our case, slightly different. So our system sends an abstract to the laborer. Boss, go and do your work in 704. We represent by blue color. Wherever is blue, you can simply go and work and take your payment. Wherever there's red, there are quality issues, go solve it. Wherever there is probably green, the work is done. So using this simple system, we are able to improve the bottom line of our contractors by 20-25%. Matlab more profit to our contractors. Hence, once the profit goes up, what will they start doing? They'll start paying their laborers eventually more money, because that's how productivity gains happen. Hence, your wages also go up. So with in a typical project, right, Ranveer, where we build, let's say 500 condos, we end up using around 7 to 8 million man hours. And imagine the optimization one can do among 7 to 8 million man hours. So that's what our technology does. So we built a digital twin system. So whatever work you do on site, using the app, our engineers and supervisors, they constantly update the data. Again, there's a lot of data. And then using the various set of rules and the best practices, what we would have achieved in some other site, the system optimizes which particular area should the laborers be going. It's like a location algorithm, simple ranking algorithm. So that brings in a great degree of operational efficiency. And second, using this architecture, we were able to make the entire payment system for our laborers autonomous for our contractors. See, again, this has been a sector where it's usually mired with corruption. So what happens? Contractor does work, and typically builder ka bhai attitude aisa hota hai. You worked as a contractor, you have done some work, and then builder feels that he's doing great favor by giving him money, which is essentially obligation. Builder has a lot of that feel. I'm not going to give. I want this person to be behind me for 10 days. वो kick दिलाता है कुछ लोगों को. So, we totally eradicated that. Now there is no human which puts a bill. The system compiles all the data on on every fortnightly basis, or it can even be instantaneous. It's how you set up the system. And then it does pura compiling of what all works they have done, and it pays them autonomous. Zero human intervention. Before, in most companies, I would say not in most, in all companies, the way it happens is contractor does the work, and approximately the file which says what all work you have done travels through 4 to 6 desks. And every desk there'll be some hafta, right? And hence it adds to the cost of operations for the contractor and all that, I would say, time waste practices. So which is what we could cut out using our technology, right? So, and that gives a great degree of transparency for the contractor as well. And then because of that, most of our sites deal with labor surplus most of the times. Hence, I can get work executed faster and at scale. And second thing, what happens is, using all this data, now I'm building a neural schema. Let's say you want to become a builder, right? And you want to build a 50-floor skyscraper in Mumbai facing the sea. And you have no prior experience to do it. That could be one major hurdle in not doing that thing, right? So using my neural schema, you can subscribe to our neural schema and you need not do anything. You need not even know that you use bricks to build a building. Our system will take care of everything. It's just a software subscription, intelligence subscription. You subscribe to intelligence of building a building, right? So, and then that software piece can simply tell which laborer to take, what work he should be doing on today, tomorrow, day after tomorrow, what materials, when you should bring, everything. So that's where our future vision is, where construction intelligence on demand.
To enable future builders. All they need is money.
Yeah, all you need is capital and probably land, and then boom, you can subscribe the software and you can,
and a RERA number.
There's a shortcut. Yes.
I don't want to be corrupt.
Yeah.
Let's talk about corruption on a higher level. It's a sort of rumor / urban legend / urban chatter that politicians also make the money off of real estate.
That's true.
That's true. Break down this whole thought, because I mean, the image that all politicians give out is, hey, I do it for the people. This is all for Bharat. And I get it. It's very nice. It's how it should be. But obviously, there's a monetary game. The thing is, you have too much insight at that level. You know which real estate corridors are going to come up. You know where the rates will go. You just have better intel than the average person.
Yes.
I would assume that's the core of politicians getting into real estate.
So, two things, Ranveer. First, corruption pertaining to this field exists at 3 levels, right? One is corruption for political expenditure, which I don't think should even be called corruption. Because you have to run a party, you are holding public rallies, you need money for that, right? So essentially that's political expenditure is one aspect. Next is politician gaining out of this, that's corruption. Next, and I would say most of the time it's the poor politician who always gets blamed. Let's say a politician is there's 100 rupees corruption which is happening, the politician makes 30 rupees only. The 70 rupees corruption happens at a bureaucratic level. IAS or maybe, officers in the municipality and various stages, right? And they're from different categories, IAS or maybe group 2, group 3, I don't know, the different categories of whatever ranks they are. So how corruption happens in the sector, bureaucratic corruption. So essentially there are policies. There are rules how you should be, based on that rules, we need to be designing the building. Let's say I buy a 1 acre land. The rule says I can build 1 million square feet, right? Now, this rules change time and again, right? Now, let's say I bought the land and the rule has changed. So how bureaucratic corruption or negligence also sometimes, which leads to corruption, how it does this. So when the policy changes, I should be intimated, right? Now I'm not intimated. What happens? Then whatever you say, I'll be at your whims and fancies. Kuch to kar le baba. Take whatever you want, but at least Let me run through it. So what happens a lot of the times is the policies change, and a lot of policies change by bureaucrats, because politicians, they're not subject matter experts at this, right? How can they be? They cannot be. It's too much to ask also. It's not possible. But the bureaucrats are subject matter experts, and they change these policies. It can be any small thing also, time and again, and they don't notify this in the Gazette. So essentially how the government functions is, when it can be with respect to any policy across pan India. So whenever a government comes up with new policy or amendment to a policy, they have to notify in a notice board, right? That's what is called Gazette. Gazette means you need to notify it. Now, somewhere it has become digitized, somewhere it's not become digitized. It's very iffy area. So they do not notify. Hence, I'm designing my building on the old set of rules because I'm not aware on the new set of rules. Now, this is something where they're very careless and they have zero empathy towards the developer community. And this is when there is scope for value add / corruption. Actually, now the rule has changed and I'm not aware, so something else. So if I'm losing something, then I have to give them. If I'm gaining something, then again some share has to go. So this now will get eradicated a lot with process side reforms, right? I looked at a lot of podcasts from Sanjeev Sanyal sir, and he has been talking about this, and I'm most optimistic for these things. See, government does major policy level things they do. Okay, this is the direction we want to build. We want to enable the manufacturing sector. We want to enable some sector. That's the policy reform, like the broad reform. Next is the process reform. How does these things happen? Let's say there is any change. How will the change be notified to its users? In this case, businesses like us. So if this is not done in a transparent manner, or sometimes what happened with a builder and a political nexus, as a builder, I can go, maybe I bought a piece of land and I can change some policy which will increase the amount of square feet I can build on that land. And I could do this only to myself. Then what will I do? I'll probably go to the politician, and if I have a good relationship or something, I can offer some percentage of the gain I'm getting, and they can issue a GO, and this GO can be under the desk. Matlab, it's not wide open in the public, so rest everybody won't even. This even leads to a format of crony capitalism, where only I as a builder gain, my rest of the market doesn't have access to this, they don't gain. So these practices have to become lesser and lesser. But, I would say still the awareness on how to reduce this has not yet come in, which is essentially process. Like, simple, right, boss? You change a policy, heaven or earth, you have to go maybe policy.com, put some website and just put it there, right? If you don't put it there and somebody has gone with the old policy, then they should get approved. Something like that. There can be process reforms. So the awareness for government folks, particularly bureaucrats, because this is the responsibility of the bureaucrats on this line, is either I don't know it's awareness or genuinely not wanting to do it. I don't know what it is.
Too much cash to be made.
Yeah, so
that's probably what it is.
Possible.
Now that we've gone so deep into real estate, I'm going to bring you back to the surface.
Okay.
I think what really stuck out for most of our viewers was the REIT part. So that's what's doable right now.
Yes.
Do you have any other doables right now in terms of for a 24, 25-year-old who's just trying to understand the space better? Or is it a better practice to just figure out your roadmap and follow the kind of guidelines we've given throughout this episode?
So one can be that, but what guidance or maybe suggestion I can say is, real estate is a very, very big supply chain, and there are a lot of inefficiencies. So I would really want there are a lot of entrepreneurial opportunities in real estate, because it still significantly functions inefficiently. So I would definitely want a lot of, if you're in 25s, right, more than investing in real estate, put a business in real estate and disrupt it. There are a lot of such point solutions, like, fractional ownership is now picking up. There can be something around, a lot of apps and technologies coming around maintenance, leasing, and they're not that mature. Still, it's quite immature, and, the products and still do not provide great service. So look for problems in real estate. There are plenty of them, and solve those. There's a multi-bagger there. And when it comes to investments, I think, what we have said pretty much can be a standard set of practice.
So the only thing you'd add is think of entrepreneurship.
Entrepreneurial stint. Yeah, there are a lot of problems here which can really add, value.
The fear that even I feel in my heart about this angle,
Entrepreneurship in real estate.
is that it'll require a lot of money?
No, not at all. See, let's say you want to solve a problem particularly related to fractional ownership. You need to have a reasonably small tech team, develop the technology and start experimenting with it. To build technological solutions in real estate, you do not need much capital. You just need access to problems and use cases. Because where I've seen the challenges when it comes to young people disrupting the sector, it's not around capital. Capital is available in plenty and PropTech is quite buzzing with good amount of deals and all of that. But the understanding of the problem is not there. Like they don't know the use case. And second thing, in real estate particularly, I see sometimes with people with technological background or tech entrepreneurs who want to do in this field, sometimes they might get a little carried away that tech is the almighty solution. No, tech is part of the solution. You need to deal a lot at the people layer. There are a lot of relationship layers involved in this, right? So that is what they should be cognizant of it so that you can really, disrupt it. And in fact, one of the use case I would like to even say out using the podcast. And if anybody entrepreneur is looking to disrupt in that line, I'm even willing to invest in that, is that there's a lot of inefficiency around how people take home loans. It's still a lot of paperwork and that sort of stuff. And there is a good amount of technology which we also built. And we need an entrepreneur who can scale it for us, right? Where you make the entire process of taking loan for buying a home much easier and very digital friendly. So we have the technology. We need drivers for that. So if anybody wants, you can ping me on LinkedIn. I would be more than willing to work with them.
May you find your core team.
Thank you.
That's what I'll say. So it's very enlightening a podcast. Thank you, bro.
Thank you so much, Ranveer. Thank you for giving us the opportunity. And because I think this is a sector which doesn't speak much, and whenever it's spoken, 80% is generally in the negative direction, right? Not the positive news in that. So through your channel and I'm glad that I could come here and talk with you, and through you reach out to a lot of young Indians around what is real estate. And this is going to be one of the great contributor to GDP in the next 20 years. India is just 32% urbanized. I think by the time we turn 2047, we'll be around 55% urbanization, and cities contribute big time to national GDP, and we are part of city building. So thank you so much.
No, it was a pleasure. I sincerely hope that audiences understand that this is a skill. If they are talking about upgrading skill sets in order to earn more money, the real question is, cool, I'm sure you'll end up doing that, but what are you going to do with that money to really, really multiply it beyond just portfolio management services and mutual funds?
Correct.
This is a very nice domain that you will enter at some point. So it's better that you start getting educated about it.
Yes,
right now.
and there'll be real estate portfolio management also which will be coming up soon.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's bound to happen. It's bound to happen. Again, that too is another area where a startup can disrupt. That too is another area.
In terms of you just give a big bag of cash to someone and they invest it in real estate specifically for you.
Yes. So I would be more than happy to share the use cases or the problems which the sector faces, and then young entrepreneurs can take those use cases and disrupt. Right. So it's good for all of us. Right.
A lot of fun.
Thank you so much, Ranveer.
Thank you, bro.
Pleasure meeting you.
Likewise.
I really love talking to you.
Likewise.
Thank you so much.
Likewise.
Namaste.
Thanks. Thank you, bro. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was the episode for today. Ajitesh Bhai will return on TRS. What I need from you is to suggest down below, what else would you like us to cover in the same domain? I personally attempted to cover the A to Z about real estate, but I'm sure I've missed out on some topics. So let me know what you thought of today's podcast. Drop your suggestions in the comments below. And until next time, guys, from Ranveer and the team, we're going to be back with more epic episodes. Ajitesh Bhai is going to be back with more real estate knowledge. Keep supporting TRS. Keep learning and growing with us.